Georgia falls 41. It felt like 80 after a while. 41-24. Really a big letdown in the second half for the Dogs. A game that I wouldn't say they controlled it in the first half, but obviously they almost had a 10-point lead going into the half. But as they should know by now, no second half lead is strong enough for Alabama, Matt. And the Tide come back, proving they are the team to beat clearly in the SEC, maybe in the country even.
Yeah, they were the better team today. That was clear. The big matchup was Georgia's secondary against their wide receivers, and they won that battle going away. They threw all over Georgia. I thought Mac Jones was excellent.
Yes.
Probably a Heisman front runner after this. I mean, Georgia's secondary, they're not scrubs. Those are good players, and they've played really, really well. But Alabama's high-powered passing offense, I thought, was just too much for them. And I expected Georgia to lose this game. I thought it'd be a little closer, but I thought they'd have a little bit more fight to them, especially in the fourth quarter. It kind of looked like they tapped out there at the end, and Alabama just kind of imposed their will on Georgia, which is what Georgia does to other teams. And Alabama kind of bullied them in the second half and ran away with the game. That was pretty close at the half, like you said. So disappointing.
That means you go, Dylan.
Well, I thought within the passing game for Alabama that they were going to have success if Georgia couldn't rush the passer. And I didn't think there were times where Mac Jones had just so much time back there to throw the ball. But at the same time, there were a lot of times where Georgia was getting good pressure on him. But either way, it didn't seem to matter too much. I mean, they were, we talked about this, I think, on Wednesday, just big plays were an issue. We were worried about big plays, and they pulled off several of them over the top. And, I mean, Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle were just terrific tonight, and that was what we feared most.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a game that Georgia's offense has got to be better, and that's just all there is to it. They were adequate in the in the first half, but they do not have explosion, the likes of which that Clemson and Alabama have, and that's what's going to cost them in games like this. So that's either going to have to be developed, or they're just not going to win these games. And there's really probably, I guess Florida can beat Georgia. There's not a lot of teams in Georgia's way before they have a rematch. Well, there's 6 teams in their way, but it's just hard to see how many of those teams can really legitimately beat Georgia. Sorry. But when you get into that situation, and you're Georgia and you have, you can't let them get down the field to kick a field goal before the half. I mean, a 10-point lead totally changes the situation there. I mean, I'm not that guy normally. The pass interference was a terrible call. You cannot make that call, and that changed the game completely. There's a huge difference between a touchdown and a field goal there. You're talking about 2 plays there where, I think that I'm assuming Alabama. I think Alabama they called the play before the half correctly, but the pass interference was just like, you can't have that, Dylan. That's just unacceptable.
We're talking the one on Eric Stokes in the end zone, correct?
Exactly. Which one?
Yeah,
that was the one. And then you don't call that the play before with George Pickens in the end zone, and like 2 plays later, this is an interception for Alabama. Just can't happen. Alabama is a good enough team, and I'm never this guy. Alabama's a good enough team. They probably still win the game, but you can't. This is ridiculously bad, and it's got to stop.
I think Alabama still wins the game if they don't call that, but that drastically changed the game. Just the tone and the tempo of it. Because at that moment, a field goal would have been a huge win for that Georgia defense. But to give up a touchdown changed everything at that point. And I think Georgia still loses the game when Alabama kicks that field goal, if they do. But it still made a huge difference, and probably why it became kind of a blowout at the end.
Matt,
I thought the turning point of the game was Stetson's interception when they were in the red zone. A field goal ties the game. He tries to throw it into, I guess, double coverage over the middle, something that wasn't needed. You throw that ball away, you kick a field goal, you got a tie game. Instead, they march right back down the field and get a 2-score lead, and then it kind of unraveled from there. But I know it's tough to take some positives out of a game like this, but I did think the offensive line played really well.
They did.
I thought the running backs ran hard. I thought Stetson made some nice throws, made some bad ones, but I thought he made some plays. And again, the defense did play really fast and made some plays in the first half that, was exciting. And, you thought, wow, they could really be in this game the whole way and maybe pull this out. And then the second half happened.
Well, they need help from the offense. I mean, look, that's all there is to it. 24 points isn't beating Alabama. And again, I might be wrong with where this was, but if you're not going to call that on George Pickens, you can't call the same thing on Eric Stokes if you're not going to call that on George. Because nothing happened on that play, that pass interference. Kirby didn't complain about it, but he mentioned it, I think, 3 times. That can't happen. And, this league is a great league, but there's far too much discussion about how Alabama gets calls all the time, and I'm not going to participate in that stupidity. I will say that if you're going to call calls, you got to call it on both sides, period, the end, and I'm going to let that go. I thought Georgia's offensive line played pretty well. Stetson's got to play better. I mean, 3 interceptions, that's not going to work. And when you take a look at the statistics, the statistics make it look, I think, to some degree that he played worse than he did at times. But, I mean, it is what it is, Dylan. He's got to play better in these moments.
He got to play better, and I agree that the statistics look worse than how he actually was. But I think we also have to acknowledge that the height proved to be an issue tonight. Yes. I mean, I don't know the total number of deflections tonight.
It was at least 4.
To me, I think it was more than that.
That's what at least means. At least, not fewer than.
Of course.
Yes, thank you.
But I mean, I felt like, not to get vulgar here, but I think there was just a shit ton of them at the line. I mean, it seemed like there were so many, and I don't know how he can change that, other than being taller.
He can't.
But that's the thing. But I mean, that was just a huge issue in this game tonight. At least 2 of those interceptions were because of deflections. And
one for sure. I mean, the first half. I mean,
well, yeah, the first interception was.
It was a good play too. It was a good play too. But look again, the defense. 41 points. Yeah, that's too much. That is too much, Matt. But the offense has got to do something in the second half to not score points. I mean, that's just not good enough. This quarterback play has to be better. Defensive back play has to be better. Punter was very good. There were things like, I think having done this as long as I have, there's enough there that are problematic things, Matt. But you've seen them go get beat worse than this at Auburn. You've seen them play at LSU and get beat. Something like this. Maybe this wasn't. Maybe LSU was worse. I don't know. And then they've come back and stormed back and had their chance, or did win the conference championship. But there's going to have to be some maneuvering on offense. I mean, the run game seemed to be there.
It was, and I'm glad Dylan brought up the pass deflections, because that's going to lead to more interceptions. Everyone says, well, the first one wasn't on Stetson, it got tipped. Well, no, it is on Stetson, because it did get tipped. He barely threw it over the guy's helmet. And when it happens 4 or 5 more times, that's on the quarterback. That's not something that rarely happens.
Well, we're not even. I mean, I'll tee this up for you. I mean, I don't know what he was, and he didn't know what he was doing on that. I mean, that final interception was just insanity.
Just doing too much.
Yeah.
They're down, and he was trying to make a play, and only Brett Favre can make that type of throw. But I thought the running game was there too. I thought Zamir looked really good. I thought Kendall Milton ran hard. We saw some Jermaine Burton. I liked some of the wheel routes and the different ways to get him the ball. But they have to be more consistent, and they have to do it in the second half. I thought they even converted a lot of third downs. They made some key third downs in that first half. It just didn't translate to the second half, and that's where Alabama showed that they were the better team. But that's Georgia's half that we've seen. They dominate opponents in the second half, and today they were dominated.
No, against Alabama, they have not proven. Excuse me.
Yeah. Well, I was saying this year alone, but. Yeah.
Well, certainly this year, and you're right. I mean, but Dylan, if these guys want to get where they want to go, which is hoisting national championship trophy, they're going to have to deal with Alabama in the second half. And, if you see Clemson, they win the national championship in 2016 by sticking with it and figuring out. They also had a generational quarterback. So, that helps too. But it's those two things. And I don't know what they're going to do on the offensive side of the ball to create more points. They're going to need to score more though.
But and Matt mentioned it, the run game was there.
Yeah,
And
it was.
not that they necessarily went away from it, but looking at the stats, Stetson threw the ball 40 times tonight. They ran the ball 30.
Way too many throws.
Exactly. They should be running the ball more. I mean, especially at the clip they were running it at. They were having success running it. And I think Alabama ran it 43 times compared to Georgia running it 30.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can play. And Stetson is a much better quarterback when they are running the ball. All quarterbacks are better quarterbacks.
Of course, because they just have more options. You have the play action there for you. There's just it's more to manage on the defense. It's less predictable, and the run game was there as a thing, and they didn't necessarily go away from it, but they didn't rely on it like Georgia should with their offense.
They didn't even run in the first 2 drives. I'm thinking, what are you doing? Why are you not running the ball? We've seen it the past few weeks. You can run on Alabama. I thought Georgia would try to establish that game, run game early. Instead, they're out there throwing the ball. One leads to an interception, the next 3 and out. And then it's their third series where they finally start running the ball, and you're like, wow. I mean, they're doing that pretty well. Can they make enough
changes? I'll go with Matt first. Can they make enough changes here to be competitive with Alabama and Atlanta? I mean, name whatever you want to name. You switch a quarterback.
Maybe with a healthy JT Daniels, if he is as good as he could be or how we think he could be. But I think Stetson could beat every team on the rest of their regular season schedule. He can beat Florida and the rest of the teams they're playing. It's clear that he's not the guy who can beat Alabama in an SEC title game. So I would say the quarterback.
What do you think, Dylan? Because everybody just quickly goes to quarterback. I mean, it's the one thing this is what people do.
Because it's the most important position.
It is.
Truthfully. And, if JT Daniels is a real game changer, then yeah, of course. But we're not sure if that's the case. Yeah. I think really you just need to have a more dominant run game. Alabama ran the ball 13 more times than Georgia and had 2 more total yards. I think if you're Georgia, I think you just got to run the ball more. And I don't know if that wins you the game here, but
it might.
But they have the backs to do it.
Yeah.
They
exactly.
stopped giving it to Kenny McIntosh. Cook had the nice touchdown, explosive plays. That's what they keep talking about. They get one, and then they stopped going to them. And they started forcing the ball to receivers who were covered, and it didn't work out so well for them.
Yeah, but some of the receivers are open. That's just the thing. I mean, you can see it there, and Stetson's got to do a better job of getting it to the open guys. I mean, because that's what makes him good is he plays quarterback. I mean, this is not about necessarily physical attributes from Stetson Bennett. He is there to play quarterback. And tonight, the throw across the body, I'm not going to do it like, I don't want to overdo the pass interference call in the corner there. But because the game was probably already done at that stage. But like that, you just can't do it. And he knew he was trying to do too much. But all that matters is in the moment, are you doing it correctly or not? And this team is going to have this program now. I mean, this is the worst loss that Kirby's gotten from Nick Saban. I mean, this is the most solid beating. And yet, I mean, you sit there and you watch them play and you're saying, Georgia's in this game. Georgia's in this game. Georgia's winning this game. Georgia's winning it. Okay, Alabama's drug within 4 here by the half, and the second half is all Alabama, basically. Georgia's got to not move the ball. They have to score. The defense would be in a completely different situation if they're trying to hold Alabama to 35 rather than holding them to 45. So it's all about the offense. This is not new. Stop me if you've heard this before. But this offense has got to play better. Now, Jake Fromm played really bad the last half of last year. But there have been times in this offense under Kirby Smart has been very good. They need to return to that. And the bulk of that time, Dylan, it's been predicated on the run.
Look, 0 points in the second half is unacceptable.
Nope.
That's just absolutely unacceptable. Of course you're going to lose this game. If you're scoring 0 points in any half, you're going to lose this game.
Dean, when's the last time Georgia went a half without scoring a point? I'm trying to.
A point?
And a whole, it might have been an Auburn loss a couple years ago, or the one to LSU. I don't remember, but
It's not common.
it's not common. But
No. And the thing about it was, I mean, they really had Alabama kind of boxed in the first half. I mean, that with the exception of I think the end of the half, that 3 points was very valuable for them, no question. But they kind of were controlling things. There weren't, I don't know how many yards Alabama had rushing, but it didn't seem like it was a lot. There wasn't much in between the tackles. It was fine, and you knew they were going to pop some big plays. Georgia had one, what I can recall, big play. That's the issue. So this is about big plays and fewer mistakes. I mean, again, two turnovers in the second half. You only have so many drives. You can't have that many turnovers, and the other team didn't turn it over. Alabama's offensive line is light years better than Tennessee's. It is the best offensive line in the country. And that's what allows Mac Jones to do what he wants to do. Knowing that, and the defense is going to be out there fighting the whole time, you're going to have to do more offensively. I mean, they give the ball to him at midfield. Georgia doesn't do anything to start the game. If you get some points there, it's the little stuff really adds up. And by the fourth quarter, too much little stuff had added up for Alabama and gone against Georgia, Dylan.
Well, and we talk about the big plays. I mean, Jalen Waddle, the 90-yard play. Devonta Smith, his long was 34, but he had 167 yards total. I mean, he had big play after big play. It's just, again, this is what we were worried about with Georgia, and they just gave it up. Those receivers ended up being too much for that defense.
These are the best receivers they will see, and this is the best offensive line they will see, and they're just going to have to figure out how to deal with it. Clemson can outscore Alabama. I don't know. I think Alabama's better than Clemson. I've seen them in back-to-back weeks. What will hurt Clemson is their offensive line. They have a really good defense. I mean, those two teams are the best teams in the country. After that, I don't know. Yeah. What were you going to say?
I saw Clemson in person today.
No, they saw them today. Yeah.
First quarter wasn't all that great.
No,
Tech actually moved the ball a little bit, and then they scored 35 in the second quarter, and then it was over. But right. I do want to say, Dean, I remember texting you during the Georgia game when Karis Jackson dove for the ball on the sidelines, couldn't come up with it. Jermaine Burton couldn't come up with the touchdown catch where he was sliding. Those are catches and plays that Alabama makes. Championship players make those plays where you got to make a play on the ball, and Georgia couldn't do that. Alabama definitely did. I mean, there were times where they made great catches like in coverage. I mean, they made the plays. They look like, future NFL stars where the Georgia receivers and their playmakers haven't taken that next step yet.
I think it was Devonta Smith's second touchdown. I think Eric Stokes was on him. That catch was phenomenal. Eric Stokes had good coverage on it. And it was an NFL catch too. He had both feet in. I mean, that was just something, I don't know if maybe George Pickens, but even then,
George Pickens got to chill out and grow up. It's time. I mean, I don't hate the kid. I don't know the kid. I'll pull for him, but it's time. Like the grabbing of someone's face mask, even if it wasn't called, like that ain't gonna work, man. Just be you, chill out, and go make plays. And this team still has a little bit of ways to go. I mean, Kirby's got to get him there. I mean, he has been a very good coach at Georgia, but it's time. And they're 17 points worse than Alabama. We know that right now. And will they be closer than that in Atlanta? Because I'm going to tell you, right, they lost by enough tonight that they're not just going to get into the playoff. They're going to have to beat Alabama, period. And if they want to win the national championship, they're going to have to beat Alabama at least twice or someone like Alabama. So, the notion of, I think probably we need to chill out the notion of the national championship because they're just not there right now. And now something could change. I don't know. But, there's a lot of things they can do, Matt. I mean, Stetson Bennett's got to play better or they're not going to start him.
Yeah.
He's just got to play.
We got to figure out the JT situation. Is it the knee is not ready yet? Or do they just think Stetson is the best option right now and he's fully healthy? I don't know either, but they better figure it out.
He's got to play better than he does. If he's the quarterback, he's got to play better than he did tonight. The first three games, I mean, I thought it was pretty good actually. There were times when he made plays, but your quarterback, and this is just how it goes. They get a bunch of criticism. But Stetson's got to play better. That's all. It's not.
After each game, we've said he played well, but he could play better. This is not the best we've seen from Stetson. He could be better than this.
Right.
He could improve. And I mean, maybe the Alabama defense is better than we thought or I thought, but he's missing guys. And again, he made some great plays. The throw to Cook, I mean, he took that hit like a champ, like a warrior, and that was a beautiful ball. But too many mistakes to win a game like this.
They're going to have to execute. It ain't just Stetson.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
Dylan, I'll give you the final word here. Comments?
Well, I think you're right in the sense that this team is capable of committing or of competing for a national championship, but we do need to slow down in the sense that right now they are not.
No, not.
Can they get there? Can they get there? Yes, but a lot needs to change, and we do need to slow ourselves down because they're going to have to beat Alabama again at this point. I agree with that.
Clearly. Nobody else is beating them. Yeah. I still want. I thought Ohio State was the best team coming into the year. We haven't even seen them play yet. Maybe they're a lot better. They're going to be nothing but trouble for whoever they play. But Georgia, the one thing that those three programs have is they have an offense that can really score. It can bail you out when your defense struggles, like Alabama's did last week against Mississippi. So that's what Georgia's got to start dealing with. All right, Dean Legge, Matt DeBary, Dylan Webber. Georgia gets handled pretty easily by Alabama and Tuscaloosa, certainly in the second half, to fall to 3-1. We'll see you over on the website.